The champion Zed is probably best known for his ridiculously high ban rate in low elo. His burst damage and target access punish careless mistakes way too hard, so newer players just don't want to deal with him. In high elo, on the other hand, people are a lot less afraid of Zed, since they are better at abusing the champion's limitations. However, if you think that Zed would only be a noob stomper, I got a surprise for you. As a matter of fact, high elo Zed mains are still able to carry even against top tier opponents. One example of this would be the player XQ01, who reached Challenger as a Zed main, and he also streams on Twitch, so check him out. In any case, most solo lane players complain because they think the game would always be decided by bot lane difference. As an AD carry main, that's not true. We always get one shot all the time. But XQ01 is also living proof against this. In fact, he is stuck with a Soraka Nautilus for his bot lane, which, especially in high elo, is just trolling. You complain that your AD carry sucks? Well, he doesn't even get an AD carry to begin with. In any case, before we look exactly how he deals with that problem, I will first give you his runes and items so you can copy those right away. XQ01's most common Zed rune page is First Strike, Magical Footwear, Futures Market and Cosmic Insight, with Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm secondary. As you can see from this page, he is all about scaling. Some Zed players take Electrocute for more early dominance, but Zed is not really an early game champion. With First Strike, you get your items much quicker and you deal more damage in the late game where it matters most. It is a top tier assassin keystone as well, since you deal all your damage within the 3 seconds window, gaining maximum value. With Magical Footwear, you accelerate your build even more, because the 300 gold you don't need to spend on boots now can now go towards your next item. The same concept applies to Futures Market, giving you your much needed power spikes just a little earlier, and as you will see in a second, the first completed item for Zed is the most important one, so getting that fast makes a big difference. Cosmic Insight is just a generally good choice on most champions, because everyone cares about summoner spell cooldowns, and even item cooldowns can be a factor here, since your Duskblade will be up more often that way, and also your Edge of Night in cases in which you need it. And also never forget that your trinket is affected by this as well, so value is guaranteed. Many Zed players opt for Transcendence and Scorch in their secondary runes, but Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm also make a lot of sense, and I think they are more powerful. Yes, Transcendence is good in the late game too, but Scorch is more like an early game rune, whereas Zed really just wants to scale. He has one of the highest AD ratios in the entire game, and the bonus AD from Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm feed into that directly, while also of course being buffed by lethality. Well, speaking of items, you don't actually rush lethality, as counterintuitive as that may seem. The first item you buy is actually Ravenous Hydra, and only then do you go for Duskblades, Cyrilda's Grudge and Boots upgrade. Zed's biggest weakness is arguably that his wave clear is much worse than that of most other mid laners. If you can't wave clear in the mid lane, you can't really impact the rest of the map without giving you an immediate-free mid lane tower. Mid lane tower disadvantage is never what you want to have in League of Legends. With Ravenous Hydra, however, you can wave clear quite fast, fixing that problem completely. But then you actually add some armor penetration into the mix with Duskblade and Grudge to make your high attack stat as relevant as possible. Lucidity boots can be upgraded earlier, but boots are not really a damage increase in a way that attack damage is. Yes, movement speed is always important and ability haste means more uptime on your spells, but Zed's target access is not really depending on movement speed that much, and the initial burst damage is more important than getting multiple rotations. Your last 2 item slots are situational, but they pretty much always boil down to Black Cleaver, Serpent's Fang or Edge of Night. All of these items are excellent on Zed in their own rights, and their unique passives might be more or less useful depending on your lobby. With that being said, okay, that was not intentional, but let's jump right into the analysis. Okay, so in lane, Zed is actually much weaker than most other assassins because he's more like a late game champion, whereas other assassins try to dominate the early game and snowball. His wave clear is anything but great at this point, however you can go for last hits with your passive rather easily if the enemy lets you. Akali is not a ranged champion and cannot punish Zed as hard as a ranged champion could, but she still has the superior burst damage at this point and the better wave clear, so Zed can't really do much except for stand under tower and try to collect the farm. The best ways in which you can interact with your opponents still is trying to trigger First Strike whenever it's up, so you get some bonus gold, also some bonus damage. Naturally, it's not all that much during the early game because it's a percentage, but if you land a good combo on them, it can add up over time rather quickly. Sure, the enemy are already taking advantage of blue team's bot lane, ganking and killing them while they can't do anything about it, but you have to remain patient. Instead of frustration letting get the better of you, you just stick to your game plan. It's your best course of action and your best chance to win. Yes, losing objectives as a consequence of lack of bot lane and mid lane pressure is a little frustrating, but there just is no alternative for a late game champion like Zed. You have to just take it for now and try to scale. And by the way, just in case you're wondering what the hardest punish for a trash bot lane combo like this would be in High Elo, well, the enemy support has now teamed up with their own jungler, making life hell for the entire map. Top lane gets dived with no counterplay, and blue team's jungler is getting bullied as well. It's truly a terrible situation. However, XQ01 always has an eye on the minimap just in case. And as the enemy is getting a little too bold, he is using his teleports to quickly join and prevent the tower dive, hard punishing their greed. His presence is able to stabilize the situation, giving his team some much needed breathing room. And now, after finally finishing that first item, Zed has some much needed wave clear. He now has a lot of agency, can push the wave and go for roams. In fact, that's exactly what XQ01 does here. Yes, he is spotted by the control ward, but Yasuo is hopelessly overextended. When you see a threat coming and can't react, it doesn't really matter that you saw them coming in the first place. Huge shutdown and huge pressure alleviation for bot lane. The mid and late game will be quite difficult for XQ01 nonetheless, but at least he can now just push the wave past the river and into the tower to see how the enemy reacts, while also fixing the lost side lanes. With this relatively risk-free approach, he can keep his income high while also making sure his Ravenous Hydra remains stacked. And with all that AD, Zed's punish game works just as well in High Elo as it does in Low Elo. The enemy out of position have no chance to react in time. Of course, you don't want to overcommit when you don't have a team to back you up just yet. If they need more time to scale, they need more time to scale, or be useful in any way, shape or form. You, however, don't want to be like one of those noob assassins who just jump in to get a kill only to then get killed themselves. Oh, and if XQ01 manages to clear this entire wave, you have to click the subscribe button. There you go! Now, both side lane towers might have fallen already, which is definitely not good for map pressure, but XQ01's safe play and great wave clear keep the map stable enough due to mid lane tower. Of course, the enemy are still trying to pressure that valuable objective, but let's see what Zed has to say about this. Yeah, the incoming wave gets cleared almost instantly, alleviating a lot of pressure again, but Yasuo, who didn't realize that in time, then gets deathmarked, and with a quick WQ to finish the job, Yasuo's mistake ultimately gets punished. So Dragon is about to spawn, but blue team have no AD carry to control the objective, and the enemy is still quite far ahead. However, XQ01 has acquired his core items by now, so if he can manage this team fight perfectly, he might be able to make up for the bad team composition. This one ultimately came down to learning the enemy's patterns. They've shown time and time again that they are ready to punish blue team for the bad comp, but they overextended every time trying to do that. So instead of jumping into the backline, he first punishes the overextending front line. Only then does he go in with his ultimates. Managing your resources like this, knowing when to engage and when to wait, is crucial for your success. And of course, if literally all enemies are off the map, you can make progress even without an objective taking AD carry. So the enemy are using their tempo advantage after respawning to finally take down that mid lane tower. However, they have learned their lessons somewhat and are not overextending fully. They took the tower and tried to disengage to not feed any more kills. Yet they still paid a price for that greedy mid lane tower push, and blue team, you can bet in a high elo lobby like this, blue team are using their numbers advantage to pressure Baron as a result. Yes, blue team might be at a mid lane tower disadvantage right now, but when you can push with Baron minions, that won't last long. However, XQ01 smartly brings Baron buff to another lane as well, creating even more pressure on red team, maximizing the advantage. This ultimately means bot lane tower finally falls now as well. Much needed. In any case, it appears that blue team would be overextending into a massive rel engage here, but at this point we are deep in the late game and Zed has teleport. Yeah, after getting picked apart like this, Red Team are finally surrendering the game. However, if you like solo carry champions in solo lanes, you might also enjoy K'Sante, so click the link on your screen right there.